They have very individualized profiles on people that in part have been produced by AI and some of these big data mining firms that work for intelligence agencies like Palantir. And the goal of that is to basically, the military and all of these groups, knowing we know that they've invested millions of dollars in building essentially bot armies that are used to conduct influence operations. And we know they also do that against the domestic populace. And that, this was legalized under the Obama era. They lifted the domestic propaganda ban and all of these other things with the NDAA, or one of the NDAAs in the Obama era. And all of that can be pointed at the US populace domestically for the purpose of advancing, what these guys say is in the US's national interest, but increasingly it's in, either the deep state or the power elite's best interest.
In recent years, the term conspiracy theory has taken on a whole new significance. It's increasingly evident that orchestrated efforts persist to deceive us, enabling so-called global elites to advance their sinister agendas and maintain control. Whenever someone challenges their narratives, they conveniently dismiss it as a conspiracy theory. But how many of these narratives align with reality? With vast sums invested in elaborate propaganda campaigns, distinguishing truth from propaganda becomes ever more challenging. And experts warn that this task is set to become even more daunting with the rise of artificial intelligence. In her latest interview with Peak Prosperity, investigative journalist Whitney Webb issues a stark warning about an impending threat that could usher in an era reminiscent of the Middle Ages, not in terms of civilization or technology, but in terms of a dangerous concentration of power among the few. Whitney asserts that this has long been the elite's agenda, though the advent of the internet initially disrupted their plans. Despite its flaws, the internet has empowered critical thinkers like Whitney to question mainstream narratives and uncover this grand scheme. However, Whitney forewarns that the internet, as we know it, will undergo profound transformation by as early as 2025. These changes will be subtle yet immensely powerful, potentially slipping under the radar for many unsuspecting users. Before we continue with the rest of the video, do check out Daily 5-Minute Crypto Newsletter with all the latest crypto and Bitcoin news. It's a fantastic analysis of on-chain crypto data and breakdowns, and the best part is it's absolutely free. They'll cover expert predictions, breakdowns of on-chain crypto data, and any breaking news you need to know, all in a nutshell. Click the first link in the description and enter your email to join over 50,000 others in becoming a better crypto investor right now.
Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to drop your comment and observations in the comment section below. Thanks and enjoy the video.
What we're seeing is an effort to sort of herd the world towards what I would refer to as a neo-feudal model. So sort of going back to the same concentration of power that existed in the feudal era, or the dark ages of Europe, as it were, where you sort of have kings and you have sort of their enforcer class, and then you have a large serf underclass, and that the goal is to have basically those strata, the differences between them, enforced by technology. I think a key component of that is the efforts to control the flow of information, because in that era, right, the church dominated the flow of information and knowledge, and a lot of this was later, spread around and distributed to the serf class through the printing press and things like that, and now in modern iterations, the internet. And in order to bring things back to the neo-feudal era, the powers that be have to take complete control of the internet and the flow of information, and I think that's why we're seeing this increased push of censorization, and also to have, AI, generative AI that they produce end up producing the lion's share of the content online. Those two things, I think, go together in order to sort of manufacture reality so that we're more easily controlled and herded into these various systems that they're setting up that will maintain the vast majority of the populace in this serf underclass. And a lot of the big establishment thinkers on AI have pretty much talked openly about how that technology is being used to create sort of the upper class, the kings of the data barons, I guess, of the modern era, as opposed to the oil barons of previous eras, and how, the people that control the data that AI trains on and the people that program and maintain AI will be sort of in this upper class, and that AI will act upon the lower class, and the lower class over time will become cognitively incapable of understanding what AI is doing to them and how it's molding their opinions, and will become dependent on AI. for everything and will not really be able to function without it, or even make their own decisions and know their own preferences without it. And, this was laid out by people like former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, Henry Kissinger, figures of that variety, openly talking about how this is where this technology is taking us. Yeah, so I think information is absolutely crucial to developing this neo-feudal model, precisely because if they can manipulate how humans perceive reality, they can fundamentally shape human behavior. And I think that's really the ultimate goal of this. And I think, during the COVID era, for example, that was a big boon for them in terms of like the lockdowns and all of that, because people weren't interacting so much with the real world. They were instead interacting with the online world chiefly, which they can manipulate more effectively and essentially create realities that don't necessarily exist, and convince people that that's what's happening, and manipulate trust also. And as I'm sure you and your audience are aware, the big theme at like the World Economic Forum for the past several years, including this year, has been rebuilding trust and how to claim trust or reclaim trust among the people who have sort of, to varying extents, gotten wise to this essentially big power grab that's happening on the part of the elite right now. So narrative management is a big part of it. And the internet has been an issue for them in that regard, in terms of allowing whoever, anyone to publish information or read, and for people to read that information, hence the increased efforts to not just censor, but also have them through AI produce the lion's share of content. And I think it's been said now that ChatGPT and generative AI like it is going to be responsible for like 90% of content online by 2025, which is, a year from now.
In a report from 2023, the Europol Innovation Lab projected that by 2025, approximately 90% of Internet content would be generated with the assistance of artificial intelligence. Given that this lab supports innovation within the European law enforcement community, it's considered a reliable source of information. However, as Whitney has cautioned, the objective extends beyond merely allowing AI to oversee the Internet. Presently, AI is portrayed as an impartial facilitator of information, promising to streamline human existence. Yet, what value is an easier life if it reduces us to mindless beings? In this scenario, we'd consume curated content, perceive only what's permitted, and engage with approved topics. With AI dominating content creation, censorship becomes effortless, stifling dissenting voices through instant censorship, surveillance, and harassment. However, according to Whitney, this is only a fraction of the impending reality. The ultimate goal is the complete domination of humanity, and the consolidation of power into the hands of a select few. Let's return to the interview to explore this further.
And then the other factor here in terms of the AI era in which we are stepping into is the potential for AI-generated people to say things they didn't actually say, or for events, through this whole deep fake thing, to suggest that, certain realities exist when in fact they do not, which is, a whole different layer to all of this, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure is going to be very heavily weaponized, which is again why I think it's important for people to engage just as much in offline discourse as online discourse, just because if you are purely online and they are taking increased control of the virtual world, you're going to increasingly receive data and information that they are manipulating for their purposes. And I think right now we're seeing more of that than we truly ever have. Being offline and engaging with people and seeing how things really are outside of the online world, I think is more important than it's ever been. They have very individualized profiles on people that in part have been produced by AI and some of these big data mining firms that work for intelligence agencies like Puppeteer. And the goal of that is to basically, the military and all of these groups, knowing we know that they've invested millions of dollars in building essentially bot armies that are used to conduct influence operations. And we know they also do that against the domestic populace. And that, this was legalized under the Obama era. They lifted the domestic propaganda ban and all of these other things with the NDAA, or one of the NDAAs in the Obama era. And all of that can be pointed at the US populace domestically for the purpose of advancing what these guys say is in the US's national interest, but increasingly it's in, either the deep state or the power elite's best interest, which tends to be from preventing any sort of real change from happening that would lessen their power or prevent us from, going even further down this path that we are on. So, I definitely think it's, open season for psyops in a way it never has been. And, what I worry too, in this particular sphere is that there's an increased effort because of their efforts to regain trust. What they're seeking to do is sort of to co-opt or use or lend people that don't deserve it anti-establishment clout so that they can essentially act like they're going to deliver the change that people want. But they'll be delivering the same policies that their political bases are against, whether that's digital ID or programmable surveillable money, or things of that nature, while claiming that they're against those things. As an example, with like central bank digital currencies, there's also a dual effort by commercial banks to issue commercial bank digital currencies, which are also CBDCs under the names of deposit tokens or bank issued stable coins. And so, maybe figures like Trump and Ron DeSantis and some of these other figures have, said, if we're elected or in power, there will be no central bank digital currency. But are they against, JP Morgan issuing, deposit tokens or stable coins that are just as programmable and surveillable as what, the central bank could issue? And is that really any better for prosperity and liberty of Americans? Is it better to be surveilled by Wall Street and have them program your money than it is to have the Fed? Quite frankly not, especially when you consider that people like Jamie Dimon, for example, have come out on record saying they think private property should be seized in order to meet, UN climate goals and things of that nature. It's really ultimately the same thing at the end of the day. And so I think we're going to see, various efforts to try and herd people into the same system. But in order to have that happen, they have to convince people that the initiatives they're supporting are actually against this control grid to an extent, by giving it different names and different appearances, but ultimately it's fundamentally the same.
Central bank digital currencies, regardless of their presentation, represent centralized forms of currency capable of controlling, manipulating, and subjugating populations. The entity wielding control over currency wields significant power over the world. Individuals would hesitate to question or criticize those with the authority to freeze their assets indefinitely, leading to perpetual impoverishment. The evident hunger for power and immunity from criticism among these entities underscores the danger of granting them control over both our information sources and a centralized digital currency with an easily accessible off switch. What are your reflections on Whitney's straightforward yet insightful analysis? How are you preparing for the impending changes? Share your thoughts and observations in the comments section below. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.